My wife tried to weaponize my mental health in court. Then the judge recognized my face. I am Noah Brener, a man who believes that integrity doesn't need a megaphone. But in a U.S. divorce court, silence can look a lot like guilt. I spent years as a volunteer advocate standing up for victims of abuse in the same courtrooms where I now sat as the accused. My wife, Chloe, was a master of the narrative. She didn't just want a divorce. She wanted a demolition. She wore her designer clothes like armor and treated our marriage like a chess match where I was the only one who didn't know we were playing. The silence of courtroom didn't just feel heavy. It felt like a burial. He's mentally ill. The scream didn't come from a movie set. It came from Chloe. She wasn't whispering to her lawyer. She was shouting for the entire gallery to hear, her voice cracking with the kind of practiced tremors that win Oscars. I sat there, the guy who used to share quiet Sunday mornings with her, now being branded as dangerous and unstable. Chloe's mom stood up next, pointing a trembling finger at me. Marrying my daughter to this fool was the biggest mistake of my life, she hissed. It wasn't rage in her eyes. It was the cold regret of ever letting me into their precious family. In the world of high-stakes legal battles, this was the nuclear option. No kids, no property battle. Just straight-up character assassination. They were trying to paint me as emotionally erratic because after my brother died, I did the responsible thing. I went to therapy and I got help. I told her everything back when we still had trust. Now, she was weaponizing my grief to secure a massive settlement. Then, the judge leaned forward and asked a question that turned the room into a vacuum. Do you really not understand who he is? Chloe's face froze. She blinked, her poor me mask slipping. Excuse me, she stammered. The judge didn't look angry. She just looked tired. I've seen this before, she said. A person takes someone kind and honest and uses those qualities like weapons until the story gets rewritten and the kind one becomes the crazy one. Chloe's lawyer tried to object, but the judge cut him off. She turned to me and said, Mr. Brener, I remember the Prescott hearing. You were one of the only civilians who testified, even when it wasn't safe. I remember you. The ground didn't just shift. It opened up. Chloe looked at her lawyer, panicked, realizing her insanity angle just hit a brick wall. But she had no idea that while she was busy screaming, I had been staying strapped with receipts she didn't even know existed. The atmosphere shifted from a trial to an exposure. Chloe tried to backtrack, whispering, I didn't mean it like that. I was just upset. But I stayed silent. I didn't come to court to prove I was stable. I came to show her she couldn't define me anymore. See, when you try to rewrite someone's life, you better hope they haven't kept the receipts. The night before the hearing, her attorney's office sent over a summary of exhibits. But buried 2 pages deep in a batch of scanned PDFs was an accidental upload. A file Chloe was never supposed to include. It was a journal entry from her phone's notes app titled, Plan, Divorce Timeline/Mental Fitness Angle. I read her own words to the court. She detailed exactly how she would isolate me by leveraging my therapy records, how she'd use my grief over my brother to suggest I was dangerous. She even wrote, if I push the mental health angle hard enough, the court will back off. He'll fold. He always does. That file was timestamped 3 weeks before she even served me the papers. I had forwarded it to the judge's clerk for an integrity review. As the judge read Chloe's playbook in total silence, the tension was so thick you could hear a pen roll off a table. +1. Then the doors at the back of the courtroom swung open. Rachel Prescott walked in. The same Rachel from the abuse case years ago. Back then, she was a victim trying to survive. Now, she was a community speaker and counselor. She took the stand and told the court how I'd driven 2 hours every day just to support her and other women during their trials. I've never once seen him act without integrity, she testified. Chloe's lawyer looked subdued, realizing their entire strategy had collapsed. But I had one final blow, Exhibit 17. An email exchange between Chloe and her friends discussing the exact phrases to use to paint me as unstable without triggering a psych hold. The judge took the envelope, read it for a full minute, and then looked at Chloe with a chilling calm. This court finds clear and convincing evidence of premeditated misrepresentation, he declared. The final ruling wasn't just a win, it was a total wipeout. Because Chloe had tried to commit fraud upon the court, the judge didn't just deny her alimony. He stripped her of everything. All claims filed by the petitioner, including requests for spousal support and joint property, are hereby denied, the judge announced. I was awarded full ownership of the marital residence and exemption from all shared debts. Miss Brener, the judge said, his voice like a gavel. Courts exist to protect the truth. Your actions sought to exploit both the vulnerable and the law itself. Bang, it was over. Chloe walked past me in the hallway, her designer heels clicking too loud in the stillness she'd left behind. She thought she was going to cancel me and walk away with a paycheck. Instead, she walked away with a restitution of character judgment filed against her, a permanent legal record of her lies. By the following week, her perfect life crumbled. Her social media went dark because her victim story wasn't working anymore. The mutual friends she'd lied to started messaging me privately, saying they had no idea it was that bad. I didn't respond to the drama. I didn't need to. The best part of the truth is that it travels without a microphone. That night, I sat in my quiet house, a house that finally felt like a home again. I found a sticky note from my brother tucked in a book. Don't let anyone turn your pain into their spotlight. I smiled and pinned my new judicial advocacy certificate next to his old guitar. I didn't fight back with noise or screams. I waited, I documented, and I let her own words bury her. In the end, that silence was louder than anything she ever shouted in court. And if there's one thing I learned, it's that the truth doesn't need a microphone. It just needs someone brave enough to stand still while the lies burn out. She tried to bury me, but she forgot I was the one holding the shovel. If you've ever had to fight a quiet war or watch someone try to rewrite your story, you know that having the receipts is the only way to stay upright. Drop a receipt in the comments. Have you ever caught someone in a lie that changed everything? Smash that like button. If you believe that silence can be the ultimate power move, subscribe and hit the bell. Don't miss our next story of calculated justice and the truth that finally hits home. Because around here, we don't just survive the drama, we end it with the truth. Stay sharp, stay documented, and I'll see you in the next one. I thought the bang of the gavel was the end of the story. I thought Chloe would take her losses and vanish into the shadows of her own lies. But in the world of professional victims, losing is just a setup for a new tragedy. 2 weeks after the final judgment, my lawyer called. Noah, stay frosty. Chloe just filed for an emergency appeal. She's claiming ineffective counsel and that the digital evidence, the journal, was a deepfake or a hack. I wasn't surprised. A woman like Chloe doesn't just go away. She doubles down until the house falls on her head. She went on a local news sob story circuit, her face pale, no makeup, wearing that same innocent white sweater. She told the cameras I was a tech-savvy manipulator who framed her. She was trying to win in the court of public opinion since she'd been bodied in the court of law. But while she was busy doing interviews, I was busy being thorough. If there is one thing I know, it's that when someone tries to bury you, they usually leave the shovel behind. I went back to the Endgame file she'd accidentally uploaded. I realized there were metadata tags she hadn't deleted. GPS coordinates showing she wrote those unstable Noah plans while sitting in a Starbucks across from my therapist's office. She was literally stalking my recovery to time her strike. The appeal hearing was set. The same courtroom, the same judge. But this time, Chloe brought a new lawyer, a media personality attorney who loved the spotlight. "Your Honor," he bloviated, "my client was under extreme emotional duress. The so-called journal was a private venting session, not a roadmap. Mr. Brener is using these receipts to gaslight the public." I sat there, stone-faced. I didn't need to shout. I just leaned over to my attorney and handed him a second USB drive, the one Chloe's lawyer hadn't seen yet. The judge looked at Chloe's new lawyer and said, "Counselor, before you continue this gaslighting narrative, perhaps you should explain why your client was seen meeting with a private investigator to buy fake medical records 2 days ago." Chloe's jaw dropped. The victim mask didn't just crack this time, it shattered. The courtroom air felt like it had been sucked out of the room. Chloe's deepfake defense died right there. See, I hadn't just waited for the appeal. I had hired my own team to follow the trail of the friends she coached in those emails. One of them, a woman named Mia, who Chloe had burned in the past, decided she didn't want to go to jail for perjury. Mia handed over the master script Chloe had sent to her entire friend group on an encrypted app. It was all there. The how-to guide on destroying Noah Brener. The judge leaned over her bench, her eyes colder than a winter in Maine. "Ms. Brener, this court has a very low tolerance for those who use the legal system as a stage for fiction. You didn't just lie. You attempted to manufacture evidence to overturn a lawful ruling." The judge didn't just dismiss the appeal. She referred the case to the district attorney for criminal perjury and evidence tampering. But that wasn't the receipt that ended her. As we walked out of the courtroom, a man in a dark suit was waiting in the hallway. He wasn't a lawyer. He was a process server from the IRS whistleblower office. "Chloe Brener?" he asked. She nodded, dazed. He handed her a thick stack of papers. I walked past her, pausing just long enough for her to see me smile. Not a mean smile, just a truth has landed smile. "You always said I'd fold, Chloe," I whispered. "But you forgot. I'm a volunteer advocate. I know exactly how the system handles people who try to exploit it." Chloe lost the boutique. She lost the squad. And because of the criminal charges, she lost the one thing she valued more than money, her reputation. She became the cautionary tale of the city, the woman who tried to weaponize mental health and got buried by her own metadata. I went back to the nonprofit I was building with Rachel Prescott. I didn't do it for the clout or the spotlight. I did it because there are a lot of Noahs out there, quiet men and women who think their silence is a weakness. The truth doesn't need to scream. It just needs to be archived. She tried to take my mind, my money, and my name. But she forgot that I keep the books. If you're tired of the narrative and ready for the truth, you're in the right place. Comment receipts if you want to see the breakdown of how to protect yourself from a calculated partner. Like and subscribe to join a community that values integrity over theater. Hit the bell so you never miss the moment the truth finally hits the fan. Stay quiet. stay documented, and remember. The louder they scream, the more they're hiding. While Chloe was busy drowning in her own legal fees, the squad, those loyal friends who whispered in the gallery and lied in their depositions, thought they were safe. They figured that since they weren't the ones in the marriage, they wouldn't be the ones in the crosshairs. They were wrong, and I don't believe in half measures. Once the judge saw the email exchange, the one where Chloe coached them on how to paint me as unstable but not enough for a psych hold, the integrity review expanded. I didn't have to sue them. I just had to show them the mirror. I sent a copy of the master script to the HR departments of the two friends who had used their professional titles to give Chloe's lies weight. In the U.S., most corporate contracts have a moral turpitude clause. Being caught in a documented conspiracy to commit fraud in family court tends to trigger that clause pretty fast. One of them, a woman named Lindsay, called me sobbing. "Noah, please, I was just being a good friend to Chloe. I didn't know it would go this far." "Being a good friend doesn't require committing perjury, Lindsay," I said, my voice as cold as the marble in courtroom 4B. "You didn't care about the truth when you were trying to help her take my house. Why do you care now?" By the time the dust settled, the squad had completely turned on Chloe to save their own skins. They started providing the district attorney with every text, every voice note, and every strategy session Chloe had ever led. When you build a house of cards out of lies, the people standing next to you are the first ones to run when the wind blows. Chloe didn't just lose her husband, she lost her army. And as for me, I didn't feel like a villain. I felt like a man who had finally cleaned his house of the rot. The truth doesn't just set you free. It clears the room of anyone who didn't belong there in the first place. Who was the real villain? Was it Chloe? Or the friends who helped her build the lie? Let's settle it in the comments. Like this video if you've ever had to cut a fake friend out of your life. Subscribe for more stories where the quiet man gets the last laugh.